In the last vignettes, we have been talking about emotions and religion, or we have been talking about religious emotions. Now, these two words are like dynamite. If you put them together, it can explode and you could be self-destructing. The reason behind this is because religion and emotions or feelings are a very bad combination. Emotions is something on the lower part of man, while our mind is on the higher level. It is the brains, the mind, the soul that is supposed to rule the body and not emotions. Emotions, because it is blind, is usually extremes. It can be exhilarating, depressing, jubilant, sad. It can be agitated, and therefore it's not a very good atmosphere for a true religious life. Religion and emotions are a very bad combination for only one main reason, and that is because oftentimes we substitute emotions for religion. Oftentimes when we sing some religious song where the words "God love us" is present, it gets us so highly emotional that we think God really loves us. And yet we cannot find any reason why God should love you. And so the same thing, sometimes God would move you to repentance. He is just moving you unto repentance. But sometimes you're often deceived into believing that He has already made you one among the elect or chosen. There is a great disadvantage for us today in this world because we are living in a very emotional age. During the time of St. Paul, the Corinthians were living at a time when Corinth was the center of indulging in one's emotions and feelings. Everybody was giving in to their emotions, so much so that Corinth was called a prostitute city. And the same thing happened in Phrygia, where the first heresy of Montanus was born. The people were living in a very pagan atmosphere. And when we say pagan, we really mean people who are living by the rule of their emotions and feelings. Corinth and Phrygia are not so bad compared to our modern age, because right now we are so surrounded by feelings and emotions. It is almost a form of idolatry that we worship feelings and emotions, and this is not very good for religion. Look, for instance, at a sporting event. See how the crowd behave every time their team would win or lose. They even go violent. And look at all the players when they score. Why? They're practically hysterical. And the same goes with our movies, both in the screen and television. There is so much emotions. Sometimes actors would spend minutes saying nothing. Oh, anyway, they were not saying anything in the first place, but just looking and crying. Now, this is pure emotions, and you don't even understand why they are too emotional. And so in this atmosphere, we can see really that emotion has ruled the world, which has made it very bad business for religion. Whenever they would like to describe an event and they want to praise that event, they say, it was an emotional event. See how today so much value is given to emotions. If you look at all the problems that we have today, you will notice it is basically emotional problems. It is the inability of a person to manage his emotion. When a husband and a wife have problems, it is because they cannot manage or control their emotions. When children have problems with drugs or this or that, it is because they cannot control or they cannot understand their emotions. And so the same thing with priests when they have problems or bishops. Their problems are usually based on emotion that has gone out of control. And so we have the sacrament of marriage, which is precisely the place where husband, wife, and children are supposed to sanctify themselves. So the husband and the wife at the beginning of their marriage, are filled with emotions, but they're supposed to be spiritual, and it is their spirituality that tone down their emotions. It has to be toned down because it has to be toned down by a spiritual life, a life of spirituality. If and when that spirituality is not there, when the emotion disappears, then new emotions would come in which would destroy the family. And so it is incumbent between husband and wife that they spiritualize immediately their marriage, basing it on obedience to the commands of Christ, so that when the emotions are gone, then the marriage is based on a solid foundation. The same thing goes with the training of children. Of course, when the children are young, they're so cute and they're so nice, so we shower them with emotions and affections and feelings. Well, that's all right, but they must be gradually trained into being independent from these emotions and to gradually love with their mind, because love, true love, is primarily an act of the mind. The same thing goes with the seminarians. You know, when seminarians enter the seminary, or any religious enter a convent or a monastery, they are full with zeal and excitement. But then in their training in spirituality, this thrill and excitement has to be substituted immediately into a life of obedience, trying to live the life in the seminary in as more spiritual way than emotional. So when the emotions die down, their life can be well founded on the spirituality of obedience to the commands of Christ. Man's makeup is made in such a way that the emotions or the feelings of man are directed towards the material world, in the sensible part of man. And therefore, if you are ruled by emotions, your mind and your whole personality will be focused simply on the sensible things around you, the sensible things in the world. And that would make you very materialistic. On the other hand, the mind tends to dwell on the spiritual, on the non-sensible aspect of the world. And therefore, if the feelings rule the person, then the mind cannot climb up to things which are spiritual. Life has many ups and downs. There are trials, there are moments which are joyful, there are nice things happening to you and bad things and illnesses and joys. So it is understandable that emotionally we would go up and down. But as we have seen in the past vignette, the sign of a person that's spiritually mature is that he is consistent in his feelings and emotions. His feelings and emotions are guided by faith, and so it doesn't go into extremes. It is just there. Meaning to say, the reason why the emotions of a mature person is more or less level is because he trusts in God. He understands that everything that is happening, whether it's nice or not nice, is God's plan. Everything is in the hands of God, and God is allowing it for my good, spiritual good, and the spiritual good of people around us. So why should you worry? Why should you get excited or be anxious if all these things are completely in God's control? So keep in mind that in the Catholic Church, emotions should really be set aside. We must be serene and tranquil. And keep in mind that one simple act of humility done quietly and in secret is more important than all the exaltation and jumping or shouting or singing that you do in life. And when you are in your dead bed, that one act of humility is going to give you more confidence than all the warm feelings, passionate prayers, and good thoughts, and shedding of tears that you have done. For by being humble, you are like Christ, and being like Christ, co-heirs with Him in heaven. God bless you.